She whispered in the shower, "$500,000 in life insurance." The detective texted a date. Sunday. A random break-in. I armed the cameras and stopped being a husband. I became an assignment. My name is Curtis Farmer, 38 years old. 15 years Delta Force before I hung up my rifle and started Tactical Solutions, a threat assessment company. Most days I help CEOs figure out if their business partners are planning hostile takeovers. Today, I'm profiling my wife. The coffee cup sat on our granite counter, lipstick marks around the rim. Natasha hadn't worn lipstick to breakfast in 3 years. The mark was fresh, burgundy shade I'd never seen before. Her real estate agency didn't require makeup for morning client calls. "Working late again tonight," she said, not looking up from her phone. "Sherry needs help with the investor dinner. Big closing tomorrow. Sherry Patterson. I'd met her twice. Both times, she mentioned having dinner plans with her husband on weeknights." Natasha's phone screen reflected in the microwave door. Text thread with someone named Glenn P. Typing indicator flashing. "How's the market treating you?" I asked. "Same as always. Inventory's tight, buyers are desperate." Her voice carried that practiced real estate agent rhythm. "You eating with Lenny tonight?" Leonard Atwood. My oldest friend, former Navy SEAL, now runs security for a tech firm downtown. Thursday nights at Mulligan's had become our ritual since I left the service. Natasha used to join us. That stopped 6 months ago. "Probably. He's got stories about his new corporate clients." She grabbed her keys, designer purse, and a small overnight bag I hadn't seen before. "Don't wait up." These investor meetings run past midnight. The garage door closed. I waited 10 minutes, then pulled up our family phone plan online. Data usage patterns told stories. Natasha's phone had been pulling heavy GPS data between 6 p.m. and 11 p.m. for the past 3 weeks. Location services for Instagram, but her posts showed generic Premier Properties tags during those hours. Reverse lookup on Glenn P.'s number took 15 minutes. Detective Glenn Park, Metro PD, 34 years old, divorced 2 years ago. His social media showed expensive watches, weekend trips to wine country, and a BMW lease that didn't match a detective's salary. I grabbed my gear bag and drove to the coffee shop where Natasha claimed to meet clients. Parked across the street with telephoto camera equipment, old habits from surveillance work. 2 hours later, Natasha's white Lexus pulled into the lot. She stepped out wearing the burgundy lipstick and a dress I'd never seen. Glenn Park emerged from a black BMW, tall with graying temples, wearing a suit that cost more than my monthly mortgage payment. They didn't act like business associates. His hand found the small of her back as they walked inside. Through the window, I watched them hold hands across a corner table. When he leaned over and kissed her, something cold settled in my chest. Professional muscle memory kicked in. Document everything. Build the timeline. Understand the network. I photographed their exit, his hand on her waist, her fingers trailing down his arm. They parted ways in the parking lot, but not before he handed her something small. A key. That evening at Mulligan's, Lenny set down 2 beers and studied my face. "You look like you're planning an operation," he said. "Marriage might be over." He nodded slowly. Lenny had been through his own divorce. "Caught her?" "With a detective. Glenn Park, Metro PD. They're not just having coffee." "You sure?" I showed him the photos on my camera. Lenny's jaw tightened. "What's your gut telling you?" he asked. "Something bigger than cheating." She took an overnight bag to a business dinner. Park's lifestyle doesn't match his paycheck. They're comfortable together. This isn't new. Lenny leaned forward. "You profiled targets for 15 years. Profile your wife. What does your gut say?" That question haunted me driving home. Natasha's car sat in our driveway, but the house felt empty. She was in the shower, singing softly, something she hadn't done in months. I checked our insurance files. 2 life insurance policies on me, both updated within the last 6 months. Combined payout, $500,000. The beneficiary signatures looked like Natasha's handwriting, but I'd never signed these documents. My phone buzzed. Text from an unknown number. Package delivery Sunday night. Make sure you're home. If it's just marriage fatigue, I'll apologize. If it's betrayal, I'll prepare. Friday morning brought clarity, like a rifle scope coming into focus. Natasha hummed while making coffee, actually smiled when she handed me my mug. The performance felt rehearsed. "What's your weekend looking like?" she asked. "Paperwork, few client calls. You?" "Sherry's hosting an open house Saturday, then dinner with potential investors Sunday." Might be late. I pulled up the Metro PD roster online. Glen Park worked robbery homicide, but his schedule showed regular overtime shifts that didn't align with department reports. Internal affairs had a file on him, nothing actionable, but complaints about evidence handling and witness interviews that went nowhere. The coffee shop meeting wasn't there first. Natasha's credit card showed charges there dating back 4 months, always on days when she claimed to be showing properties in different neighborhoods. Cross-referencing with Park's duty schedule revealed a pattern. They met when he was off shift. I installed tracking software on our home router. Within 2 hours, I had Natasha's browsing history, travel sites, luxury hotel bookings in cities where she claimed to have no business, flight searches to non-extradition countries, all for 2 passengers. Her laptop cache showed deleted emails to legal offices specializing in life insurance claims. She'd researched how military veterans' policies paid out for combat-related PTSD incidents, accidental deaths, and foreign enemy action, a clause that doubled payouts for service members attacked on domestic soil. The scripts were already written. Saturday afternoon, I followed Natasha to her open house. The address led to an auto repair shop in an industrial district, Angelo's classic car restoration. Through binoculars, I watched her embrace a thick-set man with prison tattoos covering his forearms. They talked for 20 minutes beside a loading dock where expensive vehicles sat under tarps. Angelo Clean. I'd heard the name during military intelligence briefings, suspected drug distribution through legitimate businesses. Never enough evidence for conviction, but his operation laundered money through car sales and real estate transactions. Natasha handed him an envelope. He gave her a different key, larger, brass-colored, possibly to a storage unit. Sunday morning, she kissed my forehead before leaving for investor meetings. Her lips tasted like goodbye. I spent the day installing security systems that would make the Pentagon jealous. Motion sensors in every room, infrared cameras with night vision, audio recorders with voice activation. Everything fed to a secure server that automatically uploaded to multiple cloud accounts. The dead man's switch took 3 hours to configure. If I didn't check in every 12 hours, encrypted files would automatically distribute to the FBI field office, state police headquarters, and 3 major news outlets. Insurance fraud, conspiracy, and whatever else they were planning. My phone buzzed at 9 p.m. Text from that same unknown number. Delayed until Tuesday. Target confirmed home. I typed back, wrong number. The response came immediately. Curtis Farmer, 1847 Oak Ridge Drive. Package delivery Tuesday night. Be ready. They knew my name, my address. This wasn't random. I called Lenny. I need backup gear, tonight. What kind of backup? The kind that keeps people breathing. He arrived within an hour carrying a duffel bag. Former SEALS, don't ask unnecessary questions. How bad is this? He said, handing me body armor. Wife's planning my funeral. Detective boyfriends coordinating. Professional contractors arriving Tuesday night. Lenny's face went stone cold. You calling the police? One of them's already involved. I'm handling this the way we used to handle things. Document everything, neutralize the threat, let the system clean up afterward. And if the system doesn't work, then we make our own justice. At midnight, Natasha slipped through our front door like she was floating. She kissed me with more passion than she'd shown in years, ran her fingers through my hair, whispered about how much she'd missed me. It was the signal, the performance before the final act. They'll come Tuesday night. Night is my terrain. Monday morning, Natasha moved through our house like she was memorizing it. She lingered in rooms, touched furniture with unusual care, and spent 20 minutes in our bedroom just staring out the window. "You seem nostalgic today," I said from the doorway. She startled. "Just thinking about redecorating." "Maybe we should update the security system too. These old neighborhoods get burglary attempts." The irony tasted bitter. I'd been awake since 4 a.m. reviewing the intelligence. Glen Park's phone records showed calls to 3 numbers that traced back to out-of-state contractors, professionals who specialized in making problems disappear. 2 had already arrived in the city. Flight records confirmed it. Angelo's garage served as a front for more than drug money. Vehicle registrations showed a fleet of rental cars and stolen license plates that moved through the city in rotation. Classic money laundering operation, but with the infrastructure to support contract work. Park's financial records painted the full picture. Monthly deposits that didn't match his police salary, offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands, and credit applications for properties worth more than he could afford on legitimate income. He'd been dirty for at least 3 years. Natasha was the perfect target acquisition. Beautiful, married to someone with military life insurance, access to real estate transactions that could hide money movement. She'd been recruited, not seduced. The phone intercepts revealed the timeline. Tuesday night, 2 a.m., 2 professionals would enter our house through the back door using keys Natasha had provided. They'd stage a home invasion robbery, ensure I didn't survive, and leave evidence pointing to PTSD-related violence or foreign terrorist retaliation. Natasha would be visiting her sister in another state. Perfect alibi supported by hotel receipts and credit card transactions. She'd return Wednesday to discover the tragedy, collect the insurance money, and eventually relocate somewhere with better weather. Professional work. Almost admirable in its thoroughness. I spent Monday afternoon adjusting the trap. Motion sensors calibrated to distinguish between my movements and intruders. Infrared cameras positioned for maximum coverage with overlapping fields of fire. Audio pickups sensitive enough to catch whispered conversations 3 rooms away. The contractors would expect a soft target. Suburban husband, probably asleep, minimal resistance. They'd find something different. Tuesday evening, Natasha packed her overnight bag with theatrical precision. Every movement designed to communicate innocence and routine. "Driving to see Rebecca tonight," she said. "Haven't seen my sister in months." "You'll be okay here alone?" Rebecca lived 6 hours north, perfect distance for an alibi. "I'll manage." "Drive safe." She kissed my cheek. Her hand trembled slightly. "I love you, Curtis. Whatever happens, remember that I love you." The words felt like epitaph material. She left at 8 p.m. I gave her 30 minutes to clear the area, then activated all surveillance systems. Every entrance covered, every room monitored, audio recording automatically uploaded to secure servers. At 11 p.m., I positioned myself in the master bedroom closet with full tactical gear and night vision equipment. Clear view of the hallway, protected flanks, easy access to communication equipment. The waiting game began. Professional contractors work in pairs. One handles entry and sweep, the other maintains overwatch and manages the exit route. They'd study the house layout beforehand, identify target locations, and minimize time on site to reduce exposure. At 1:47 a.m., motion sensors detected movement at the back fence. 2 figures dressed in dark clothing moved with practiced silence. Hand signals between them showed military or law enforcement training. They'd come prepared for civilian resistance. They found something else entirely. The first contractor picked our lock in under 90 seconds. The second maintained position near the kitchen exit. Both carried suppressed weapons and tactical equipment that suggested serious funding behind this operation. I waited until they separated. Standard clearing procedure would have one sweep the ground floor while the other moved upstairs. When the first contractor reached the hallway leading to our bedroom, I activated infrared strobes that overloaded his night vision. Close quarters combat ended quickly. 15 years of Delta Force training versus hired muscle isn't a fair fight. The first contractor went down hard enough to ensure he wouldn't be getting back up. The second contractor, hearing the commotion, made a tactical error and left his overwatch position. I zip-tied him to a kitchen chair and removed his communications equipment. His phone showed recent text messages with Glenn Park and Angelo Clean. Audio recordings had captured their conversation about package delivery and cleanup procedures. "How much were they paying you?" I asked. He stared at me with professional respect. 50,000 each. Clean job, no complications. Seems like you got complications anyway. You're not who we expected. I'm exactly who you should have expected. The question is whether you want to walk away from this or become part of the evidence. I sent a text from his phone to Glenn Park. Package delivered. No complications. Where do you want the cleanup crew to meet? The response came within minutes. Angelo's garage. 1 hour. Bring proof. At 3:15 a.m., I called 911. 911, what's your emergency? This is Curtis Farmer at 1847 Oak Ridge Drive. 2 armed intruders broke into my house. One is unconscious, one is restrained. I need police units and paramedics. Are you injured, sir? Negative. I'm former military. The situation is secure. Units are en route. Please stay on the line. The lead detective who arrived was Blake Harvey, Glenn Park's partner. His face went white when he heard the audio recordings from the contractor's phone. "That's Glenn's voice," he said quietly. "Jesus Christ, that's my partner. This isn't infidelity. It's a federal case." Wednesday morning brought news vans and FBI agents. Special Agent Francis McKenna studied the crime scene with the intensity of someone who'd seen too many cases fall apart on technicalities. "Tell me again why you had professional-grade surveillance equipment installed," she said. "I run a threat assessment company. Home security is part of my business model. And the audio recordings just happened to capture conspiracy evidence? The contractors' phones auto-recorded their conversations with their employers. I didn't access those files until after the break-in." She nodded slowly. The evidence chain was clean, everything documented in real time with timestamps that proved I hadn't manufactured anything. Glenn Park and Angelo Clean were arrested at 6 a.m. Park's house contained documents linking him to multiple unsolved cases where evidence had disappeared or witnesses had changed their testimony. Angelo's garage held enough contraband to justify federal racketeering charges. Natasha returned from her sister's visit Wednesday afternoon to find police cars in our driveway and news crews on our lawn. Her performance was Academy Award material, the concerned wife discovering that her husband had survived a home invasion attempt. "Oh my God, Curtis, are you hurt?" she said, rushing to embrace me in front of the cameras. "I'm fine." Professional training kicked in. "Thank God you're safe." I can't believe this happened while I was away. But her micro-expressions told a different story, the brief flash of disappointment when she saw me unharmed, the way her eyes calculated angles and exit routes, the tremor in her voice that suggested fear, not relief. Agent McKenna watched the reunion with professional interest. "Mrs. Farmer," she said, "we'll need to interview you about your husband's business associates. Sometimes these targeted attacks stem from professional conflicts." "Of course. Anything I can do to help." That evening, after the media circus died down, I found Natasha in our bedroom staring at her phone. The screen showed a text thread with someone listed as legal services. "Insurance questions?" I asked. She startled. "Just checking our coverage after what happened. Making sure everything's current." Good thinking. "Though I hope we won't need to file any claims." She smiled tightly. "Let's hope not." Thursday brought more bad news for the network. One of Angelo's associates, a bookkeeper named Timothy Walsh, attempted to flee the country. Airport security found him with $200,000 in cash and a bus ticket to Mexico. Under interrogation, he revealed a money laundering operation that stretched across 3 states. Glenn Park, facing federal conspiracy charges, attempted to negotiate a plea deal. His lawyer requested a meeting with prosecutors, claiming Park could provide evidence about corruption throughout the police department. Natasha followed the news coverage with the intensity of someone watching a stock portfolio collapse. Every arrest, every seized asset, every plea bargain possibility represented another threat to her freedom. Friday afternoon, she announced another business trip. Big closing next week. I need to meet the sellers Saturday and review documents. Where this time? 2 hours south. Small town, but the property value is significant. I followed her Saturday morning to a storage facility outside the city. Unit 247, rented under an alias 6 months ago. She handed keys to Timothy Walsh's girlfriend, a nervous woman who loaded suitcases into a Honda Civic with out-of-state plates. The girl drove straight to the bus station. Natasha returned home with empty hands and the kind of smile people wear when they think they've outsmarted everyone. Sunday morning's news brought the final pieces together. Glenn Park had been released on bail pending trial. His attorney claimed he was cooperating with federal investigators to expose police corruption in exchange for reduced charges. That evening, Natasha made dinner for the first time in months. Pasta with marinara sauce, garlic bread, a bottle of wine she'd been saving for special occasions. "What's the celebration?" I asked. "No celebration. Just grateful you're alive. I keep thinking about what could have happened Tuesday night." But it didn't happen. The system worked. She raised her wine glass. To the system working. We clinked glasses. Her smile looked like a funeral mask. At 11 p.m., she excused herself to take a shower. I checked the motion sensors. Someone was moving through our backyard. 2 figures approached the house using the same route the contractors had taken. This time I recognized one of them, Glenn Park. When you seal the rat holes, the rats run home. They entered through the back door at 2 a.m., using keys Natasha had provided. Glenn Park carried a suppressed pistol, while Natasha held a kitchen knife with surgical gloves on her hands. I watched from the master bedroom closet as they moved through our house like they owned it. Park's police training showed in his tactical movement, but he was operating in unfamiliar territory. This was my house, my terrain, my advantage. "Remember, use the knife," Park whispered. "Gunshots are loud. Neighbors might call 911. "Where is he?" Natasha asked. "Bedroom. Make it look like a struggle. PTSD episode. Maybe he attacked you first." Their voices carried clearly through the audio pickups. Every word documented and uploaded to secure servers in real time. They reached the master bedroom and found empty beds. Park swept the room with his weapon while Natasha checked the bathroom. Confusion replaced confidence. "He's not here," she said. "Car's in the driveway." Where else would he go? I activated infrared strobes from my position in the closet. Park's night vision equipment overloaded, leaving him temporarily blind. Close quarters combat training took over. Park went down hard. The suppressed pistol skittered across hardwood floors as he hit the wall with enough force to crack plaster. Natasha screamed and dropped the knife. "Curtis, wait! This isn't what it looks like." "Really?" "What does it look like, Natasha?" She backed against the bedroom wall. "He forced me?" "Glenn threatened me, said he'd hurt you if I didn't help." Park groaned from the floor, blood seeping from his scalp. "She's lying." This was her idea from the beginning. "Shut up, Glenn." I picked up the knife she'd dropped. Evidence bag material. Her fingerprints would be all over the handle, along with residue from the surgical gloves. My phone buzzed. Text message to Park's number. "Is it done?" "We're waiting outside with the cleanup kit." I showed them both the message. "Cleanup crew's here." Should I invite them in? Park tried to sit up. "Listen, Farmer. We can work this out. There's money involved. More than you'd make in 10 years. How much money? 2 million. Angelo's operation pulls in that much monthly. Cut us loose, and you get a full share. Natasha's face went white. 2 million? You told me 50,000. I told you what you needed to hear. The truth was finally coming out. Natasha had been a pawn, not a partner. Glen Park had used her marriage as cover for a much larger operation, and she'd been too blinded by whatever promises he'd made to see the real scope. I sent a text from Park's phone. It's done. Bring the equipment. 3 minutes later, motion sensors detected 2 more figures approaching the house. They carried cleaning supplies, body bags, and industrial bleach. Everything needed to make a crime scene disappear. That's not a cleanup crew, I said. That's a disposal team. Park's face went ashen. They weren't supposed to be here tonight. When were they supposed to be here? He didn't answer. Natasha did. After they eliminated you, she whispered. Glenn promised me protection, but he was going to have them eliminate me too. Keep all the money for himself. The disposal team entered through the back door. I let them get halfway to the bedroom before calling 911. 911, what's your emergency? This is Curtis Farmer again at 1847 Oak Ridge Drive. Multiple intruders in my house. They're carrying what appears to be a cleanup kit for crime scene disposal. Send every unit you have. Sir, are you safe? For now. But there are 5 people in my house who weren't invited. The disposal team heard the conversation and tried to retreat. I'd locked the back door behind them. They were trapped in my house with evidence that would put them away for life. Police sirens wailed in the distance. The disposal team panicked, dropping their equipment and searching for exits. Glen Park tried to negotiate from the floor where he lay bleeding. Farmer, I can give you names. The whole network. Politicians, judges, other cops. This goes all the way to the state capitol. Save it for your lawyer. Detective Blake Harvey arrived with the first responding units. When he saw the industrial bleach, vacuum bags, and disposable shoe covers scattered across my kitchen floor, he shook his head. Jesus, Glenn, what did you get yourself into? Park looked at his former partner with something approaching remorse. I'm sorry, Blake. It started small, just information. Then it got bigger. How much bigger? Multi-state operation, drug distribution, money laundering, contract enforcement. We were supposed to be protection, but we became part of the machine. Natasha sat on our living room couch with her hands zip-tied behind her back, staring at the floor. When Agent McKenna arrived to process the scene, she looked at my wife with professional interest. Mrs. Farmer, you have the right to remain silent. I want to confess, Natasha said quietly. I want to tell you everything. Tonight, the House testifies. The interrogation room at the federal building felt like a confessional booth. Natasha sat across from Agent McKenna and 2 prosecutors, her hands folded in her lap like she was praying. Start from the beginning, McKenna said. Glenn approached me 8 months ago, said he needed help with a real estate investment. I thought he was just another client looking to launder divorce settlement money. When did it become personal? He was charming, attentive. Everything Curtis used to be before he came back from overseas. I watched through one-way glass as my wife constructed a narrative that painted her as a victim of manipulation rather than a willing conspirator. The federal prosecutors weren't buying it. Mrs. Farmer, the lead prosecutor, said, You researched methods for killing your husband that would maximize insurance payouts. That's not the behavior of someone being manipulated. Glenn told me it was hypothetical. Research for a case he was working on. And the life insurance policies you forged your husband's signature on? Glenn said they were backup policies. Protection in case something happened to Curtis because of his business. Agent McKenna slid photographs across the table. Images of Natasha meeting with Angelo Clean, handing over envelopes, accepting keys to storage units. What about these meetings? Glenn said Angelo was a client who needed real estate advice. He paid in cash because of tax issues. Tax issues that required industrial bleach and body bags. Natasha's composure finally cracked. Tears started flowing, but they looked more like frustration than genuine remorse. You don't understand the pressure I was under. Glenn showed me photographs of what happened to people who crossed Angelo's organization. He said if I didn't cooperate, they'd hurt Curtis anyway, and I'd be next. So you decided to participate in a conspiracy to eliminate your husband? I thought if I played along, I could find a way to warn Curtis. Save both of us. The prosecutors exchanged glances. Her story had too many holes, too many contradictions. The evidence painted a clear picture of someone who'd made calculated decisions over months of planning. Meanwhile, Glenn Park was cutting his own deal in a different room. Detective Blake Harvey sat in on his interrogation, taking notes with the expression of someone watching a friend destroy himself. The corruption goes back 5 years, Park said. Started with Angelo paying for information about drug raids, which neighborhoods we'd be hitting when search warrants would be executed. How many officers were involved? Dozen, maybe 15. Angelo paid well, and the work seemed harmless. Just information. When did it escalate? 2 years ago. Angelo needed more than information. He needed evidence to disappear, witnesses to recant testimony, cases to fall apart in court. Blake Harvey leaned forward. Glenn, I worked those cases with you. I signed reports you wrote. I know, I'm sorry. Angelo threatened my family if I didn't cooperate. What family? You don't have kids. Your ex-wife moved to another state. Park's story fell apart under questioning, just like Natasha's had. These weren't victims of circumstance. They were willing participants who'd gotten in over their heads and were now trying to minimize consequences. The disposal team members were more forthcoming. Professional criminals understand plea bargains better than amateur conspirators. We were hired to clean up after a home invasion, one of them explained. Make the scene disappear, dispose of evidence, standard contract work. How many similar jobs have you done? 6 in the past year, always through Angelo's organization. Always the same setup. Make it look like robbery or domestic violence. What about the other victims? Usually people who owed money or knew too much about the drug operation. This was the first time we got hired to clean up after a spouse elimination. Agent McKenna reviewed the evidence with prosecutorial thoroughness. Bank records, phone intercepts, surveillance footage, audio recordings, forensic analysis of the forged insurance documents. The case was airtight. Mrs. Farmer, she said, would you like to reconsider your testimony? The evidence suggests this was your idea from the beginning. Natasha looked at the photographs again. Her meetings with Angelo, the insurance research, the storage unit rental, everything documented with timestamps and locations. How long have you known? She asked quietly. Your husband suspected marital problems 6 weeks ago. The surveillance started then. Everything you've done since has been recorded. He set me up. He protected himself. There's a difference. The confession took 4 hours. Natasha admitted to researching her husband's assassination, forging insurance documents, providing keys and house layouts to professional contractors, and coordinating alibis with Glenn Park and Angelo Clean. Why? Agent McKenna asked at the end. Curtis changed after the military. He was cold, distant, always analyzing everything like it was a threat assessment. I felt like I was married to a machine instead of a man. So you decided to have him eliminated? I thought if he was gone, I could start over somewhere else. Be someone different. With $2 million in insurance money? Glenn promised me we'd be together, build a new life. Did you know Glenn was planning to eliminate you after your husband was gone? Natasha's face went white again. What? The disposal team was hired to clean up 2 scenes, not 1. Your husband wasn't their only target. The revelation hit her like a physical blow. She'd been betrayed by everyone involved, used as a pawn in someone else's game, and she'd been too invested in her fantasies to see it. I want to cooperate, she said. I'll testify against Glenn and Angelo. Tell you everything I know about their operations. Why should we believe you now? Because I finally understand what my husband meant about threat assessment. I was the threat, and I was too stupid to recognize it. 3 months later, I sat in a visitor's booth at the county detention facility staring at my wife through reinforced glass. She looked smaller in the orange jumpsuit, older without makeup and professional styling. "You came," she said through the phone. I said I would. "How's the house?" "Sold it. Too many bad memories." She nodded. "Where are you living now?" "Does it matter?" "I guess not." She stared at her hands. "Curtis, I'm sorry for everything." "Which part? The affair, the conspiracy, or trying to have me eliminated?" "All of it. I was selfish and stupid, and I let Glenn manipulate me into thinking you were the problem." "I was a problem. I came back from overseas different than when I left, colder, more analytical. I stopped being the husband you married. That wasn't your fault. Wasn't yours either. People change. The difference is how they handle it." She looked up at me with tears in her eyes. "Can you forgive me?" "I already have." "Really?" "Forgiving doesn't mean forgetting, or trusting, or pretending this didn't happen. It just means I'm not carrying anger around anymore." "What happens now?" "You serve your sentence. Try to become someone better than who you were." "What about you?" "I'm consulting for the FBI now, Behavioral Analysis Unit. Turns out 15 years of profiling targets translates well to criminal psychology." She managed a weak smile. "That suits you. The work feels meaningful again?" "Curtis?" "Yeah. Do you think we could have saved our marriage if things had been different?" I considered the question seriously. The woman sitting across from me had researched methods for eliminating her husband, forged insurance documents, and coordinated with professional contractors. But she'd also been the woman who used to leave love notes in my lunch bag, who cried during movies, who believed in second chances. "Maybe," I said, "if we'd communicated better. If I'd gotten therapy for the military issues. If you'd talked to me about feeling disconnected instead of talking to Glenn Park. Too many ifs. That's life. Series of decisions that lead to consequences. My consequences are 22 years in prison. Your consequences are learning who you really are when everything else gets stripped away. 22 years is just the timeline." She wiped her eyes with her sleeve. "Will you visit again?" "No. This needed to happen for closure, but we both need to move forward separately." "I understand." I stood to leave, then turned back. "Natasha? Yes? The woman I married is still in there somewhere. Don't let this place destroy her completely." She nodded and I walked away. The courtroom felt like a theater where everyone knew their roles, but nobody wanted to perform them. Judge Patricia Weston reviewed the plea agreements with the expression of someone who'd seen too many cases like this one. Angelo Clean sat at the defendant's table in a suit that probably cost more than most people's cars. His attorney had negotiated life without parole in exchange for cooperation with federal authorities investigating drug distribution networks across the southeastern United States. "Mr. Clean," Judge Weston said, "do you understand the terms of this agreement?" "Yes, Your Honor." "And you accept responsibility for operating a criminal enterprise that resulted in multiple homicides, drug trafficking, and conspiracy to commit additional crimes?" "Yes, Your Honor." Glenn Park's sentencing came next. 35 years federal prison, loss of pension, permanent law enforcement ban. His cooperation had exposed corruption throughout the police department, leading to 17 additional arrests and a federal oversight agreement. "Detective Park," the judge said, "you violated the oath you swore to protect and serve. You betrayed your community's trust and participated in a conspiracy that could have resulted in an innocent man's demise. Do you have anything to say before sentencing?" Park stood slowly. "Your Honor, I let greed overcome judgment. I convinced myself I was protecting my family, but really I was protecting my lifestyle. I'm sorry for the damage I've caused to the police department and the community." Natasha's hearing was last. Her cooperation with federal authorities had earned her a reduced sentence, but 22 years still stretched ahead like a lifetime. Mrs. Farmer, Judge Weston said, you participated in a conspiracy to eliminate your husband for financial gain. You researched methods, provided access to your home, and coordinated alibis with co-conspirators. However, your cooperation has helped authorities dismantle a significant criminal organization. Do you accept responsibility for your actions? Natasha stood with her attorney beside her. Yes, Your Honor. I accept full responsibility. I let personal problems cloud my judgment, and I made choices that could have cost my husband his life. I'm ashamed of who I became, and I'm grateful my husband survived my mistakes. The court sentences you to 22 years in federal prison with possibility of parole after serving 18 years. The gavel fell with finality that echoed through the courtroom. Detective Blake Harvey found me in the hallway afterward. The department had promoted him to lieutenant following the corruption investigation cleanup. How are you holding up? He asked. Better than expected. The system worked eventually. Glenn was my partner for 3 years. I keep wondering if I missed signs. Corruption is like cancer. It hides until it metastasizes. You can't blame yourself for not seeing what someone worked hard to conceal. What's next for you? FBI consulting work is keeping me busy. Behavioral analysis for complex cases. Turns out military intelligence training translates well to criminal psychology. Blake nodded. The department's implementing new oversight protocols. What happened with Glenn can't happen again. It will happen again somewhere else. Different faces, same greed and opportunity. The trick is recognizing patterns before they become conspiracies. Any advice for someone trying to rebuild trust in a compromised department? Start with transparency. Admit what went wrong, fix the systems that allowed it, and prosecute everyone involved regardless of rank or relationships. People respect honesty more than perfection. He shook my hand. Thanks for not painting all cops with the same brush. Most of you are trying to do the right job. Glen Park was an exception, not the rule. 6 months later, I sat in Mulligan's with Lenny, 2 beers between us and the weight of closed cases settling into comfortable silence. How's the new work treating you? He asked. Like being back in the field, but with better hours and legal oversight. Missing the military? Missing the clarity. Enemy was clearly marked, mission objectives were defined, rules of engagement were straightforward. Civilian life's messier. Marriage was messier. Business partnerships are cleaner. Lenny raised his beer. To surviving messy situations. To learning from them. We drank without talking for several minutes. The bar filled with after-work professionals unwinding from legitimate jobs, normal problems, relationships based on truth instead of conspiracy. My phone buzzed. Text from Agent McKenna. New case. Behavioral analysis needed. Similar pattern to your situation. Interested? I showed Lenny the message. Another spouse elimination conspiracy? He asked. Looks like it. Apparently, my case study is becoming a training template. You going to take it? That's what I do now. Profile threats, analyze behavioral patterns, help people recognize danger before it becomes lethal. Sounds like you found your mission. I finished my beer and stood to leave. The Delta Force coin in my pocket caught the bar light as I pulled out my wallet. 20 years of service condensed into metal and memory. Where you headed? Lenny asked. Home. Early flight tomorrow. New case location? Phoenix. Suburban husband suspects his wife is planning something. Sound familiar? Lenny grinned. Think he's got your tactical background? Doubt it. Most people don't. What's your assessment protocol for cases like this? I thought about Curtis Farmer 6 months ago, suspicious but unsure, married to someone who'd already decided his fate. About the thin line between paranoid analysis and legitimate threat recognition. Same as always. Document everything, build the timeline, identify the network. Let the evidence tell the story. And if the evidence points to conspiracy, Then we set the trap and let them spring it themselves. Outside Mulligan's, I walked to my truck under streetlights that turned everything amber and familiar. The city looked different now, less like a place where bad things happened to good people, more like a puzzle where patterns revealed themselves to anyone trained to see them. My phone buzzed again. Different number this time. Mr. Farmer? This is David Chen in Seattle. I think my wife is trying to have me eliminated. Can you help? I stopped walking. The caller ID showed a legitimate number. Voice carried genuine fear rather than paranoid suspicion. What makes you think that, Mr. Chen? Life insurance policies I never signed. Meetings with people she claims are clients but who have criminal backgrounds. Text messages about permanent solutions to marital problems. Same pattern. Different city, different names, same deadly mathematics. Mr. Chen, are you somewhere safe right now? I'm in a hotel room. Used cash, no credit cards. Haven't told anyone where I am. Good instincts. Do you have evidence of the conspiracy? Photographs, audio recordings, financial documents. I've been building a case file for 3 weeks. Send everything to my secure server. I'll review it tonight and call you tomorrow with an assessment. What if I'm wrong? What if I'm just being paranoid about normal marital problems? I looked up at stars barely visible through city light pollution, remembering a similar conversation with myself 6 months ago. Mr. Chen, in my experience, people who ask that question usually aren't being paranoid. They're being careful. There's a difference. What do I do if you confirm my suspicions? Same thing I did. Document everything, build an airtight case, and let them incriminate themselves while you stay on the legal side of justice. Did your situation end well? I thought about Natasha in federal prison, Glen Park facing 35 years, Angelo clean, serving life without parole, justice served, system functioning, truth documented and preserved. Define well, I said. My marriage ended, but I'm still breathing. Sometimes survival is the best outcome you can hope for. Mr. Farmer? Yes? Thank you for answering your phone. That's what I do now. I ended the call and climbed into my truck. Tomorrow would bring another case, another conspiracy, another chance to help someone recognize threats before they became fatal. The drive home took me past the house where Natasha and I had built what we thought was a life together. New owners had painted it different colors, planted different flowers, filled it with different dreams. At a red light, I pulled out the Delta Force coin and held it up to the dashboard lights. 20 years of service, 15 years of profiling enemies, 6 months of learning that sometimes the enemy lives in your own house. The light turned green. I pocketed the coin and drove toward whatever came next. Sometimes the best offense is letting the enemy choose their own demise.